Hari Om. There we go. Fan is okay, it's fine. Yeah. There's no hair to blow around. Sahanavavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahavidyam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So welcome to our final day of exploring Hamsa Gita. We left off where we looked at a framework that provides us with an amazing process to understand what is real versus that which is unreal, ultimately to prioritize that which is real. Anvaya Vyatireka. Anvaya is when there is that presence of that which is uncontradicted. Vyatireka, what is it that is fleeting, that shows up sometimes, absent sometimes, negating it, and if it's negated even one time, we find that is not the truth. And we saw the beautiful framework yesterday of Avasthatraya Viveka, with all of its seemingly logical objections that arise, but each one is dismantled, and the conclusion that we're left with is, clearly, despite these three states of the individual, and all the turbulence that they face in each of these states, none of them are valid as the truth, because each is negated by the others. And that becomes an issue to accept when it comes to the waking and the dream states, because we say the waking state has more permanence to it. The objects in the waking state have some usefulness to them. These kinds of arguments arise. They're invalid, though. They hold no kind of water. Now, today, where do we come to? In this 32nd shloka now, we see what is the brilliant effect of this Anvaya Vyatireka. Yo jagare bahiranukshana dharminotran bhunkte samasta karanair hridi tat sadrukshan swapne sushupta upasamharate sa ekaha Smrityanvayat triguna vritti trigindriyeshaha. Chandas has changed also now, near the end. So it's saying that when I am in that state of waking, I do enjoy things, but they're perishable. They're there for a moment and then they go. And the funniest example of that is food. I have things that are my favorite foods. I may travel great lengths to get those foods, may pay a lot to get those foods. How long am I enjoying that food? Just as long as it's in my mouth. The moment I swallow that food, enjoyment's done with. But how much importance do I give to that, though? And I'm not ridiculing anyone. This is myself I'm talking about. How much importance do I give to that food? So much. Perishable. Gone in a second. Now, that's at the micro level of an activity that I do several times a day. That activity has a purpose. To sustain this body is its very purpose. And it achieves that, but when I make that a higher goal than it has to be, that's when problems rise. It said some people eat to live, some people live to eat, right? There's a big difference between the two. So those are perishable things. Now, the dream state also, things are perishable as well, just as they are in that waking state. And the argument that, it provides me with some kind of happiness, some kind of utility value in that waking state, still is negated. Just because I have a liking towards it, just because it satiates me in a certain way, still does not mean that this waking state is the truth. It is also negated as just a perception. Therefore, it is false. Now, moving on, we find one last shloka describing this process of anvaya vyatireka. What is the result of this kind of discrimination? Evam vimrishya gunato manasastriyavastha manmayaya maikrita iti nishchitarthaha sanchidya hardam sadukti tikshna Jnana sina bhajata makhila samshayadhim. That if I go through this process the right way, reflecting on these three states of my individuality, understanding it's those three gunas born from that power of Maya that has that hold on me, what is the ultimate thing I come to then, rejecting all of this? Bhagavan says, you will be worshiping me. That's the abode that you come to. Now, this is the first time he mentioned that you come to me through all of this, if we notice. He's been pretty selfless this whole time, hasn't mentioned himself at all. The way you know it's a bad conversation is the person keeps saying the words I, me, myself, I've done this, I've done that. This entire teaching, even though he is that supreme, divine, that all paths lead toward, he said nothing about himself until this conclusion right here. Now, there's a shloka in Bhagavad Gita as well that echoes this sentiment. If we ask casually, what is the most important shloka in Bhagavad Gita? What comes to mind are those that are well known. Whether it's yada yada hi dharmasya, whether we go with Brahmarpanam, that not just as a food prayer, but looking at it as that ultimate reality in all its facets, everything that rises from it, everything that returns to it. Karmarnyevadikaraste is another one that people point out when it comes to how is that work to be done. But many acharyas point to, and Gurudev says that the epicenter, when there's an earthquake, it happens at an epicenter, all the ripples are from there. This comes in the final shloka of that 11th chapter, is the very epicenter of Gita. Now, what is said in this shloka? Bhagavan clearly points out that there are different stages of coming to Bhagavan here. He says the person who works for me is the first stage, accepts me as that supreme goal, the sadhya, devoted to me, does not have any attachment, is free from harboring hatred to any being, that person attains me. So here in Hamsa Gita, he's going through that the superimposition of thinking I'm this wrong entity has to be lifted. That way you come to me. Bhagavad Gita, a similar viewpoint that he gives, but with steps on how to get there. That's why I'm bringing it up here. So mat karma krit, the one who works for me, who performs actions that are righteous for my sake. Righteous meaning those enjoined by the Vedas. It's not like I robbed a bank today, but I did it for my Bhagavan, therefore it is karma yoga. Is it sanctioned by dharma? Is it my duty based on varna, based on ashrama, based on what responsibilities I have? Then that is enjoined by Veda. Now the objection comes up. That Bhagavan, even when someone does righteous action ordained by the Vedas for your sake, they can still be doing it to attain some higher kind of svarga in the next life, can't they? Oftentimes we do the right thing, but isn't it better to do the right thing when someone of authority can see me do that thing? In the Boy Scouts, our scoutmaster had a rule, a terrible rule, that said before leaving the campsite after a camp on a Sunday, every scout has to pick up 10 pieces of trash, was his rule. The rule is you have to leave the nature better than you found it. So if you say, oh, the trash was already here, that's not a good enough excuse. Pick it up. If you say, I didn't put the trash there, that other guy did it, it doesn't matter. We're one team, one unit. You have to pick it all up. Okay, that's the rule that he set out. Now, some of the intelligent scouts, they don't go looking for trash where the trash is supposed to be. The place where the scoutmaster is sitting, around his area where it is, they'll go pick up trash there. Why? So he can see it happen. And he gets impressed, oh, they're picking up this trash. Now, this same doubt comes up here. Yeah, I say I'm offering my actions to Bhagavan. It's not that I love Bhagavan, it's that some svarga or something awaits me. What can that Bhagavan give me? That's why I serve. There's a huge difference between the two. And I can't tell by that action what the intention is. Only I know that intention. Only that Bhagavan, who's my antaryami, knows that intention as well. So to alleviate that doubt, after mat karma krit, Bhagavan says, no, mat paramaha, the one who accepts me as that highest goal. That's the other caveat given to diffuse that objection. Bhagavan is not just the sadhana I take up, the object of my worship, sadhya completely. That goal to which I want to attain. Now, one more objection can come up. I can still say that I have many goals then. Bhagavan, you are the supreme goal. Many other goals are still there. You go to somewhere like Disneyland, for instance. They have all of these dressed up Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, all these people. Goofy, Donald Duck, all their friends. The main deity there in Disneyland is Mickey Mouse. He will get the most people coming to him. Okay, the line is longer for him to sign your guest book and things. The other, ancillary, peripheral deities that are there, Pluto and Minnie and Donald and everyone, they're like the sideshows there. Junior artists, backup dancers. Not as valuable, but getting their autograph, getting something from them, the child still feels happy. If I'm an immature sadhaka, I have this bheda of different forms of Bhagavan then. I say that, yes, this one form of Bhagavan is my favorite. And the other ones I go to for different things as well. But, they offer me what I want to get from them. One form in mind I have is my favorite. Now, how does this manifest even today then? This kind of a misconception. Where there are certain temples, and I'm not making this up, certain temples in India that if you worship there, if you offer dhanam there, you are guaranteed to get a green card somewhere, or a visa, or some kind of tangible help like that. You've heard this nonsense? And they broadcast that temple for that reason, saying, come here and you'll get this thing from this deity. Any form of Bhagavan prayed to fervently, with the right intention, I will get what I have to get then. It'll only be for my bhala, only for my good fortune going forward. So this kind of system where I think peripheral forms of Bhagavan, that, oh, this will give me something, that will get me something, something like a visa or something, this is the foolishness of an immature sadhaka. It's bad enough that people think that way. To be encouraged to think that way by any authority is even the heights of foolishness then. So to break that notion, mad bhaktaha, that he wants to only attain me. Not only am I that supreme goal, mat paramaha, mad bhaktaha, that full shraddha is towards me. that there is nothing else he seeks, not seeing me as the highest goal and then saying for other smaller things I go to other forms of the divine. Understanding there's that one divinity, going there alone. So this is why we talked about darshanas the other day, 2 days ago, different schools of thought. One common misguided criticism of Advaita Vedanta is you all Advaitins see that divine as the one and only, therefore you disregard bhakti. You say that ultimate form is nirguna, nirakara, without any division, without any form, arupa, all of this. Therefore you don't care about bhakti, you want to leapfrog to the highest. Any acharya we look at in our Advaita Sampradaya, they quote the Shastra cleanly where it says to purify this inner instrument to even understand this knowledge, bhakti and upasana, those are the only means. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna himself says that. That's what's meant by mat paramaha, mat bhaktaha. That without this devotion, there is no growth. Coming to me as that goal, adoring me, worshipping me, says Bhagavan, is the one avenue to get there. Now, there is another objection that comes up then. Where I can love you, Bhagavan, adore you and worship you, I can still have other attachments, can't I? I can love you and adore you fully well, saying, please don't let my kids ever leave my side. Please don't let this person forsake me. I love you so much, Bhagavan, because I love you, never let me part with my wealth, please. That those prayers can be there. Am I seeing Bhagavan as the highest? Yes. Am I fully devoted to that Bhagavan? Yes, that's completely there. But these attachments still remain. So to take that notion out of my mind, Bhagavan says that person must also be sangha varjitaha, not have the dosha of having any of these attachments. That if you surrender to me, you are surrendering fully. There is nothing else you hold on to at that point. And finally, he says, to have this lack of attachment towards anything, you must be nirvairaha as well, free from any idea that anyone else is my enemy. If I have to come to that point where I see myself as nothing but that supreme, one and only, that is what I am, this entire creation is an extension of me. If I have to come to that point, if I harbor any ill will to any being, that gets in the way. Completely gets in the way. That has to be gone as well. So he goes through these different layers for us then, to clearly show that to worship me in your heart is simply not some kind of exercise where I say, yes, I've done my ritual, I worship Bhagavan. These are all the other steps that go into it. Stuff that I never think about. When it comes to worshiping Bhagavan, not having enemies, who would think that plays a role in worshiping Bhagavan the right way? When it comes to adoring that Bhagavan, not having attachments to anything else, who would think that's a pivotal role in this process? So Bhagavan lays that out very clearly. So what he says in Hamsa Gita is more of a summarized statement that do not give in to the power of that Maya. What he points out in Bhagavad Gita goes deeper in that elaboration. What is that power of that Maya? It comes as having ulterior motives and different goals. It comes as having different attachments, as having hatred towards people. That's how that Maya projects itself through these three gunas. That's why a sattvic mindset is said to be there. Now when we come to the 34th shloka, again, he gives some more logic as to why this entire waking world should be seen as unreal, this unreal nature of the world. Iksheta vibhramamidam manaso vilasam drishtam vinashtamati lolamalata chakram vijnanameka vibhati maya swapnastridha guna visarga krito vikalpaha. What he says here is this whole perceived world, see it as an illusion. Why? Because it's perceived. If I'm looking outside my window and someone says, is it a cloudy day or a sunny day today? You look out, you see the sun nice and bright. At the same time, though, you always see that there's splotches in the sky. Always you say it's cloudy. And someone comes and looks at the window has marks all over it. That's why it always looks cloudy. So no matter how sunny it is, how spotless the sky is, looking through that window, it only looks cloudy. That's all it is. Here it's not saying that I have to have clear perception to see the world as a real entity, and my perception means I see it as an unreal entity. The fact that I'm perceiving anything at all through my five senses means it's unreal. Why? The very instrument used to perceive that thing is unreal in itself. Therefore, anything it sees, how can that be real? Again, if this entire srishti is just an extension, no way possible. So because I perceive, therefore immediately, that means I have to understand it as unreal. Now, coming to this understanding seems so simple. That simple logic is given seems like such a basic way to look at it. I have to grasp it instantly. I can't grasp it though. Because Maya takes me for a toss and these gunas are always, I'm finding myself attached to them and I lose sight of what is the truth. Now, are there methods in place where I can understand this using my current skill set that I have? Because the solution can't be stop perceiving things and then things will become real. It doesn't work that way. I have to perceive. As long as I am in this body, I will go through that waking state, dream state, deep sleep state. Perception is inevitable. I can't shut myself off from that. Because one objection comes. That if you are to understand what reality is, it takes two steps. One step is this knowledge of reality has to come. Another step that's necessary is I have to stop perceiving duality. Knowledge of this reality has to come. I have to stop perceiving this duality. What does the Acharya have as an objection? If you're saying that the second step has to be you don't perceive duality anymore, then the table and the chair and the pot are already halfway realized. Because they don't perceive duality. Meaning they're more realized than you as a student then if you're saying that. So stopping perception of this world has nothing to do with realization. It's about, is that knowledge there, understanding it's unreal. Because what does knowledge do? What's its role? Does knowledge change anything about the world? Once this knowledge dawns of what my true identity is it that the world looks like a matrix where it's like a binary code and I say, oh, now I see everything deeper beyond just what the world is? Knowledge only illumines this purified mind. All knowledge does is show me it's unreal. Nothing happens to this world to make it unreal there. It's like if a room is dirty, say these chairs are thrown everywhere, there's trash everywhere, like after one of our high school lock-ins, if it looks like that, if lights are all out and it's dark, turning on that light illumines the situation for me, shows me what it looks like. We'll get there at some point, but unfortunately turning on that light doesn't automatically clean everything up. With AI, who knows? Maybe we'll get there someday soon, sooner than later. That's not what happens. Same way in this mind, when knowledge dawns, it's not that the emotions I have in this mind, suddenly negativity disappears. It's not that the colors look brighter and smell better. That's what poets write about being in love, foolishly. That has nothing to do with knowledge. That's not what knowledge is. There are no siddhis that are gained from it, that once the spiritual knowledge is attained, people can see into the future. Those are siddhis that can be gained through upasana. That is still not indicative of the highest truth, though. The only thing promised from this knowledge is what? There is no future birth after this. that videha mukti is attained where there is no birth taken after this one. And that's what's guaranteed. So are there skill sets that I can use from the vyavaharik world to help me in the spiritual path? It's given that they are. Where those who have fallen from great heights, meaning at one point they were in a huge position somewhere, status was there, respect was there, falling from that, either their term ends as a leader or people no longer respect them, they will fight and claw to get back to that respectful place. Where the things they value are things like clothes and gold and the respect of the people and everything. With that same tenacity, that as I try to go gaining respect from people, do I have that same tenacity when it comes to gaining that kind of vairagya in situations? But the people that want that respect, any situation they find themselves in, the first place they look to is, what can I gain from myself here? Do I use every opportunity the same way to say, what can I do to gain vairagya from this situation? Anytime there is anger, it's, what was the attachment that caused that anger? Anytime there is fear, it is, what is the attachment that caused that insecurity to give me that fear? Anytime there are feelings of arrogance, it is, what is that attachment that gave me the feeling of being better than someone else that gave me that arrogance? Do I do that kind of thinking every single time I feel an attachment coming? Another example given. There are those people who have to be the smartest person in the room. They have to be the smartest person in the room. They have to have stats on the tips of their fingers. Any current event that happened, they have to be the one that say the smartest thing about it. So that kind of a person is incredibly diligent about keeping up with what the news is, what the market trends are, what the price of milk, price of gold, price of gas, all of these things they know. You know these kind of people too, right? They're boom, boom, boom. They know it right away. To show their superiority, to establish that. In logic, in the arts, they know all of these things. Do I have that kind of tenacity and strength when it comes to separating the real from the unreal? Where just as so detailed they go in to figure out these nuances, do I go that deep to see, when I have this kind of a priority, I want to achieve this goal for a reason in the transactional world, that's not my final goal. This goal is unreal because A, B, C. It's something that's perceived. It's something that is finite. It is something that creates attachment. Do I have that capacity to go through that checklist? Just as people do when it comes to the vyavaharik knowledge they want to master to impress people. Some people use Shastra for that same purpose, for a rajasic purpose. That I can quote anything from Bhagavad Gita, I can tell you exactly what it means, I can use it in any kind of situation. People in this line fall victim to that often. Even in this line, those attachments are there like that, brought on by the gunas. Another example then, there are those who, knowing that if they do a certain kind of upasana, a certain kind of mantra, they will attain a spot in Svarga in their next janma. To them, realization ain't no goal. That's far away, who knows who can get that. But chanting this mantra again and again, doing this ritual again and again, guarantees me a spot in Svarga in the next life. Let me dedicate this life only to that cause. And you ask them, have you seen that Svarga that's given in the Veda? No. Have you met someone that has gone on to the other side? Not really. Then how can you say that'll happen? Full Shraddha that I have. When it comes to that kind of Shraddha that that person has, do I have that kind of Shraddha in what this Atma, what this knowledge is? Again, something I haven't seen. Have you met someone who's a Videha Mukti? Meaning, after they dropped the body, they never came back. If you say yes to that, that's already a dosha that you're expressing. You must be a Bhuta Preta if that's the case. Guruji tells this story. One man went to an abandoned city as a reporter. He heard that there were ghosts in this city, so he wanted to go check it out. As he was walking to like some decrepit hotel that was there was one man in the lobby, an ancient doorman who was keeping it up that night. Started making conversation, talked to him. And he said, you know, I'm a reporter here, and I heard there are ghosts in this city. That's why it's generally abandoned for the most part. What do you know about this? The old man said, if you personally ask me, I've never seen a ghost here, but I've only been living here for the past 500 years, is what he said. So it's there. So the moment I say I have seen someone that, after dropping the body, never came back again, that's not possible to say. So this entire path then, when it's given in the Shastra, that substratum is a real thing, that this world is unreal, seeking that you will never come back, that you have had previous births, that Shraddha is needed in that. And that is the biggest leap of faith to take. What's one of the most dangerous sports in the world? That has a sport that has the highest likelihood of death when you engage in the sport. What is it? Formula One or NASCAR? Yes. Per capita, per 100 or 1,000, whatever it is, that sport, car racing, has the highest number of deaths. It's in NASCAR, just turning left 500 times. When they say Indy 500, that's 500 miles, 500 laps that they take like that. Official sport of the Confederacy, that's what that is. Now, in that sport, you'll have a crash every now and then. And since they're going 200 miles an hour, with the rubber hitting that road at that speed, there is smoke that is enveloping the entire track. Now, if you're like me, and at the slightest sign of danger on the road, you slow down to 20 miles an hour, I wish everywhere was a school zone. We'd be so much happier. May take us a little bit longer to get places like Saket, Chitrakoot or something, but we'd all be safer. Trust me on that. I wish everywhere was a school zone. So people like me, slow down to that 20. That's why I could never be a NASCAR driver. Right? They have to speed through at that speed. Now, when the smoke is fully enveloping there, you'll have from the tower, your team leader will be in the tower watching from above, and they'll tell you, Hari, drive through that smoke. There's nothing in that smoke, just smoke. Drive through, you'll come out the other side. Go full speed. How much Shraddha do I have to have in that guy in that tower to do that? Because if there's even one car there, loss of life is almost guaranteed. I'm literally putting my life and other lives in that person's hands. Now, he could have some other... If I win this race, he gets paid more for doing that. That's conflict of interest is there. He's not all about my safety. But on this path, Shastra is always on my side. In Kathopanishad, the quote is given that Shastra is like looking out for me like 1,000 set of mothers and fathers is what is given. That is how much Shastra holds me in high regard. Because what is the greatest compliment I can get ever? At banquet, when we all dress really well tomorrow, plenty of compliments will come. That's the greatest compliment, right? Greatest compliment I can ever get is from Shastra. That I am infinite. I am beyond good, bad, or perfection. I am nothing but that nature of existence, consciousness, bliss. Shastra gives me the highest compliment I can get. So there's one student who complained to his guru that my classmate called me a donkey. And he was feeling really sad and morose about it. The guru said, if you come to me with that objection, you are a donkey. Every day I'm sitting here telling you, you are Ananda Swarupa, you are that perfection and bliss, you are blemishless, you are partless. I'm yelling that out to you every single day. That never went in here. One guy called you a donkey, you got disturbed right away. You must be a donkey then. That spoke to you so much more. So there is nothing that will praise me like Shastra does. Do I have that Shraddha to say, yes, this is true, let me go for that? It's like in high schools across this country, where the person that likes that boy or girl, they'll dismiss them going after someone else instead. Like that Shastra is wooing me, saying that you are perfection, follow me so that you don't have to come back in another birth. Instead I say, I don't want you. But then I see, ooh, money, ooh, fame, ooh, name, and I go after those things. Like we saw on the very first day, 3 animals that we looked at: dog, donkey, goat, Ajaha. Uddhava asked Bhagavan, why are we like these 3 animals? Another example given. How do I use these vyavaharik strengths in the spiritual field? Just as that person who is a yogi who wants concentration of mind to acquire great, great powers, do I have that concentration of mind to achieve this liberation? Once there was a kid who was late for school, sitting at the kitchen table eating breakfast. Stopped eating breakfast also. There's an orange juice dabba right in front of him. He's intently staring until his eyes are crossed. He's staring at that dabba. Mom came to the kitchen. What the heck is this? You haven't eaten the breakfast. The bus left for school. You're sitting there staring at that box of orange juice. What's wrong with you? What are you doing? He said, Mom, on the box it says concentrate on there. That's why I'm staring at it then. So concentration is something really, really hard to cultivate. We get distracted so easily. At a micro level of some job is there and I get completely distracted. At the macro level of goals that I've had, like in government, I have 5-year plan after 5-year plan. Nothing gets fulfilled because I get distracted on the way. So like that, how intent and focused am I? It's like an animal, like a dog. When you go into a certain part of the house where the dog food is there, the dog knows you're about to give food. They know timings and stuff too. They're much smarter than us, really. They don't wear eye watches and things. They know what time it is at all times. The moment you put the food in that bowl and you put it down, single point of concentration. Nothing else can move that dog away from that dog bowl. Nothing at all. Animals have that concentration there. So do I have that same kind of concentration when it comes to saying, this is my only goal? Nothing will deter me at this point. And the final example given, this is my favorite one, that there are those skills, soft skills we try to acquire to become experts in the field that we are in. I met one person where I said, what is your occupation? What do you do? He told me the job that I have, there are only 4 other people in the world that do what I do. Not in a bragging way. He was just explaining matter-of-factly what it is he does. I said, okay, what is it that you do? He said he performs brain surgeries on babies who are still in the mother's womb. The more words he said, the more I was in awe. Brain surgery already? Wow, that takes a lot. On babies? Oh my God, even more. In the womb? Oh my God, that's insane. It was like, wow, okay, so there's only 4 of you in the world, I bet. It's not some common skill. So he says, yeah, whenever they need emergency surgery in this, it could be in Germany, could be in Spain, somewhere like that. They send me a jet, and I get on that jet, I go there, and I perform the surgery, and then I come back. So then I said, how much do you earn for each one of these surgeries? He told me the number. I don't want to share it here. It's not necessary to share it here, but that made my eyes pop the widest when he told me what that was. So when it comes to our fields, to master that field completely without any rock left unturned, I will do whatever it takes to master that field. In the same way, when it comes to this separation of what is real, unreal, do I have that much tenacity going at it then? Where no logic do I say at some point that, I went through all this logical steps, this one point in Shastra doesn't really make sense to me, but who cares? I went through the rest of it. Anyway, in school, 70% is passing. So in Shastra also, 70% of understanding is passing. Let it go. That is not their opinion. They say until I understand every facet of it, I will drill deeper, deeper, deeper. That's the kind of commitment that takes. Now, looking at this description here, there are 2 ways I can look at it. One way is to be inspired by it, that let me also try to attain this. That if Shastra says it and people have followed it, it must be true, must have that benefit, let me go and try to follow it. The other reaction can be fear. I haven't done this yet, I hope to at some point in the near future. You go on a trek to Mount Kailash. The moment from base camp, you look at how high the mountain is, and you say, oh, that's our destination. The guide says, no, buddy. Look further, that thing you can't even see the top of. That is our destination. How does that feel at that moment? Your legs shake, and you say, oh, I don't think I can do this. But so many of you sitting here have gone and done all that. Like that with this same path, the mountaintop seems to be so unattainable, so far away. Can I even do it? Let these verses inspire me to get there. Now, the message of the next shloka that we find, where the teachings continue here. Drishtim tataf pratinivartya nivritya trishnaha tushnim bhaven nija sukhanubhavo nirihaha sandrishyate kvacha yadidamavasta tu buddhya tyaktam brahmaya na bhavet smritirani patat. Beautiful one here. So with all of this being said, tataha, therefore, let me be intent on enjoying that joy that comes from within. Not having any kind of craving, enjoying that silence, being without any kind of action. And what's the promise given here? We already saw, as long as this body is there, persisting, even after this realization has come, perception will still be there. That's the bad news. Good news is that perception will never bother me again. I will go through the rest of my days. Ignorance can never come back once it's gone. There is no remission here where I'm at worry of it coming back. That is not the case with ignorance. It does not come back to haunt me again. Now, there's one idea that I saw in one text. It took me a while to wrap my head around this concept. The question was, the wise person who has attained this realization, what do they do after they attain it? What's there left to do? And what if you attain it earlier in this lifetime? You have to live a whole life until this prarabdha karma exhausts itself. You have to live through that even though realized. Isn't that a bad existence? Answer to that question was, whatever time is left after this realization is gained is a tiny blip on the timeline. That amount of time doesn't even matter. But the objection persists. No, say that the person gets realized at the age of 25. There's still a whole 60, 70 years left to live. Isn't that just a waste then, that whole time? Again, the answer is you're not thinking deep enough here. You're thinking this one lifetime. You think about the aneka janmas that you lived, these countless number of lives. In that whole stretch, one life is nothing. A portion of that one life is even less significant. That's all that has to be lived out. So never have this fear then that, if I get on the spiritual path, I might get realized too soon what's happened the rest of the life. Don't worry about that. It's like saying that, go work out at the gym. But if I work out too well, if I flex like this, my shirts will rip, I have to buy new clothes. Don't worry about those kinds of things. It won't happen. It's not like that. Just go work out like that. Go for that realization. It's okay. It's not that you're going to get realized so soon and don't know what to do after. It doesn't come so easy then. But all jokes aside now, what do I do once this knowledge has hit? What is it that the wise person goes through? They see that their grief has come to an end. Grief of what? Grief of going through life and death again and again. Not just in the macro of janma to janma. Death, as defined in Kathopanishad, for instance, is any change that takes place is death. This second that I just paused looking around, that is one death of a second that you will never get back. Same thing happened just again. One another 2 or 3 more seconds, you'll never get back. Like that, any changing circumstance like this, a vritti that changes in the mind even, that is a death unto itself. Now, does that mean that time stops for that person who's realized? No. But the death occurs for each of us every moment because we are constricted by that time and space. I think I am this physical entity, this jiva. That is confined in this space right here, that is subject to time and growing old and losing time as I go. Because I have that attachment, time and space do affect me. For that jnani who sees himself or herself beyond that construct of time and space, there is nothing that stops them. They see I'm beyond all of this. What can confine me or contain me or limit me in any way? Just as I've gone through many janmas wearing this body, this janma also it's there. Now that this knowledge is hit, this is that last outfit that I don. There's nothing else to wear after this one. There's one more objection that comes up. That upon this realization, isn't it that my actions would completely change? Because there are no more vasanas. Those vasanas have been cut. The ones I've had for janmas have been burnt up. There are no new vasanas created after this knowledge comes. Therefore, wouldn't it completely change all my actions? I have no more craving. What is the impetus to even act at this point? That objection would come up. That you say prarabdha comes to that realized person, so it just keeps on coming. What action do they have to do to go through anything then? That's what we see in this next shloka here, 36th one. Deham cha nashvaram avasthitam va siddho na pashyati yato dhyagamat svarupam daivadapetamut daiva vashadupetam vaso yatha parikritam madiramandandha. The example given here is a beautiful example. This is coming straight from the Hamsa, the swan. Just as a person who drinks excessively finds himself intoxicated, in that intoxicated state, if his necktie has gone this way, if his shirt is messed up like this, is he going to notice all of that? If anything, the world looks topsy, everything looks messed up like this. When I was in high school, I went on a cruise with my family, one of those carnival cruises. The cruise ship captain also happened to be a part-time comedian. So he would do these comedy sets on the ship. A very talented, jovial, fun guy. Really made the experience great. What did he say? He said on these kind of cruises, there are free drinks and everything like that. So people, they get drunk like that. Those people, when the ship is starting to move a lot, when rough waters are like turbulence in an airplane, that happens in a ship also. The sober people are the ones that are, shaking and moving around. They're the ones that lose balance because the boat is like that. That guy who is inebriated, he walks straighter than anyone else there. Not some special shakti that comes. Liquid courage is one thing, but this is not what I'm saying here. It is because the movement is already happening like that, when he's already walking like this, that he ends up walking straight like that. So I guess some vices have their benefits in some ways, Very, very localized settings. But the point Bhagavan is trying to make here is that the person who has that drunken nature is not mindful of what kind of clothing he's wearing or how it looks, or is it wrinkled, is it moving to the side. He has bigger problems to worry about. Like, can I sit straight or walk straight or things like this? Just like that, a person of realization, knowing what their true nature is, just like they have no idea of the cloth that they're wearing when they're drunk, they have no idea like that of the body. Is this body going through pain? Is this body being praised or neglected or censured or ridiculed? None of that matters to them at all. That's the example given here. That's the beauty of these small sections in Srimad Bhagavatam. Is that an example you will ever forget? No. That's the point of it. That's why it's given that extremely. It also proves something else. That when we say, today's day and age, people engage in all these vices, culture is delineating, even in Bhagavatam time, to give an example of someone who's intoxicated means there were enough people like that around for them to point out. So it's not that vices are so bad in this day and age and we're devolving as a society. We've always been that way. That's the good news we can point out. This is nothing new. But it also says here that whatever this person must go through at that body level, even after realization, is through that force of prarabdha. That because of karmas done before, they do bear fruit. Which is why when someone asks the question, upon realization, does the realized person ever feel sorrow, anger, sadness? Do they? Definitely do. Because the common misconception is, oh, how can that happen? Even more weird misconceptions. During this COVID pandemic, unfortunately, several sadhu sannyasis, mahatmas in the mission, outside of the mission, they dropped their bodies, attained mahasamadhi during that time due to the effects of COVID. It happened in ashramas around Bharata. Prominent ones that Swamiji knew, a few people that I knew as well. Now, one of our devotees heard that, and his reaction was odd. He said, how could they die of COVID? I said, what do you mean? They're always doing meditation, sadhanas and everything. How can they die of COVID? Who said ever that doing some sadhana like that at the body level stops the body from dropping due to something like COVID? It's just as foolish to say, oh, someone's realized, how can they feel sad? Just as you would not be surprised that a realized person has to go through a physical ailment, Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi had a tumor in his shoulder he had to have removed. Puja Gurudev, 18% of the heart working, 4 heart attacks in his lifetime. The realization doesn't stop these things. Just as foolish as it is to say that realization staves off body problems, the mind is made up of the same 5 elements as the body, just in a subtle form. If the elements of the body have to go through a downward trajectory, elements of the mind have to as well. So emotions and oscillations, even for that realized person, will still be there. People say, oh, these sannyasis have no anger, they're beyond that. Yeah? There are devotees who've told me stories. They've driven Gurudev to the airport. Okay, Gurudev to the airport. Once they've gone to the airport, they say, oh God, I forgot your plane ticket. And this is before the days of the kiosk there, and you show them your boarding pass on your phone. This is before all of that. No ticket, no entry. Get to the airport and say, I left your ticket at home. I left your luggage at home. Do you think Gurudev is going to be like, oh, do better next time? The way he would react, they never forgot anything the rest of their lives. This is them personally telling me this. Now, what's the difference there? The sannyasi there showed his anger for that purpose in a teachable moment as a guru. The moment that moment is over, that anger drops. Now, Ajnanis like you and me, what do? I get mad about something at 8 a.m. By 8 p.m., I'm still like, Deviji, can you believe that person said this and that? Or, can you believe this? I can't drop it, even after 12 hours. That 12 hours for some of us will turn to 12 years. That anger will still persist then. That's the difference between a jnani and me. How long do they hold on to that baggage? But then how does this prarabdha still persist in their lives? There's 3 ways we can look at it. One is ichcha prarabdha, ichcha, desire. Now, the realized person, do they have desires? Not necessarily, but any kind of idea, sankalpa that comes to them that some action should be undertaken is only in the best interest of serving the people. Desires when it's something selfish for this assemblage. Ichcha prarabdha for that wise person is, this will help other people. It said that when Puja Gurudev saw the land in Kerala, he was walking around being very quiet. Someone said, Gurudev, what are you thinking? This is where we will have a university to further the studies of the Hindu people. That's all he said. One of his names is Satya Sankalpaya Namaha. That if he says it, it has to happen. The wise person has that kind of power. Not that it's some special siddhi that they see into the future, but because what they propose as something should happen is so noble, such good interest of the people, people cannot but be inspired to make that thing happen. That's why Satya Sankalpa. So Ichcha Prarabdha, that's what it leads to. Anichcha Prarabdha. Anicca prarabdha, those seeming desires that come to the mind unprompted, without a conscious desire. Because even after the realized person has gotten this knowledge with that purified mind, isn't there a shade of vasanas that still persists a little bit? This fan that is half speed turning right here. If I were to turn the switch off, does it just automatically stop like that? It slowly comes to a halt like that. Same thing with the vasanas. These impressions, which I have lovingly nurtured and compounded for janmas upon janmas, to expect them to fully vanish and disappear upon realization, doesn't happen that way. They also slowly drift away. Because if you look at the process, shravanam, doubtlessly understanding this knowledge through hearing it. Mananam, making logical connections to make sure that there is no gap in this knowledge. Nididhyasanam, to own up what this knowledge is for that abidance constantly. Out of these three layers, when does realization hit? In which layer? Shravanam. Because nothing new is happening in Mananam. I'm only replaying what this knowledge is, putting it into my works to make that logic work out for me. Nididhyasanam, nothing new is happening upon that seat of meditation. In dhyanam, all that is happening is what has been learned is abided in, owned up with that single pointed focus on that similar stream of thought. Shravanam is where the knowledge hits. So given that that stage is where realization actually happens, further stages that are there are for the purpose of eradicating these vasanas completely. So anicca prarabdha, those seeming desires that come subconsciously without any deliberate effort, those are those tinja vasanas still left. Don't you have these days where you wake up one morning and you say, today, aloo paratha. Or today, bhel puri. I knew a kid that was like that, where the moment he'd wake up in the morning, these thoughts would come to him then. He'd wake up and tell his mom, tonight bhel puri. And she'd be like, dude, you just woke up. That's so far away. No, tonight bhel puri. And he wouldn't rest until he gets it that day. A lot of kids are like that, right? I'm sometimes, The jnani even has moments like that. They're not insistent on these things happening, but this desire comes. Not knowing why, just something that persists. One example one of the acharyas used to give when they taught us was, it's not that if one sannyasi or sadhu sannyasi is from Punjab, and his whole life he's at paratha for breakfast, upon realization next morning he'll wake up and say, dosa, vada, idli, sambar, that's what I want. If a habit has been there, that'll continue to be there. It's a harmless habit. I mean, makhan parathas make you gain weight, but relatively a harmless habit, that vasana will persist there. Anicca prarabdha, what difference does it make at that point? So iccha prarabdha, anicca prarabdha, pareccha prarabdha. Those results that come to that jnani from the desires of other people. There's one of these books, At Every Breath of Teaching, one devotee gives an example there. Puja Gurudev was traveling in America. That man's house, who's telling the story, 2 hours away in the opposite direction of where Gurudev has to go. That man says, tonight you have to spend the night at my house. Give me that bhagya. Well, Gurudev has just given a lecture series near the end of his life, early 90s. He's exhausted. Gurudev didn't have the heart to say no to that devotee. Sat in that car, went those 2 hours, spent the night there, came back another 2 hours to where he had to go again. Pareccha prarabdha. Desire of someone else. Entire Chinmaya mission's existence is pareccha prarabdha. He came down from the Himalayas and just said, I'm going to go lecture in different cities. I want to spread this knowledge. They said, we want to build groups and everything. He said, whoa, no. Samsara is what I got out of. I'm not getting back in that again. No groups and things. They said, no, when you're not here, we still want to reflect. Okay, make the groups if you want. We have to give the groups a name, we'll call it Chinmaya Mission. Again, he said, guys, please, no. These are tethers you're creating again and again. There's no point to doing that. I'll just travel and speak. You all reflect. Why the need for an organization? No, we have to. This is the only way the knowledge can stay in a structural way. It creates discipline also. Okay, but don't call it Chinmaya Mission. No, we have to. Please don't call it Chinmaya Mission. No, we want to. Chinmaya doesn't mean your name. It means that consciousness, ultimate consciousness. Okay, go for it. And they did. Then they said, Swamiji, go travel around the world. He said, I did this. Bharata is the place I want to teach this knowledge. No. Our people are everywhere. Someday, even Frisco, Texas, they'll take over. You have to go to these places then. Okay. 40 years around the world, again and again and again and again. For what purpose? Did it make him happy going around like that? Having to stay in a different bed every single week at the age of 60, 70? When other sadhu mahatmas are relaxing and just living out, enjoying their tapas and reveling in themselves, here he is trying to understand a whole new culture, going around teaching these people. Everywhere he goes, boards are complaining, this is not happening, that's not happening, fixing those things. Teaching brahmacharis everywhere he goes. Transforming. Giving that vision, saying in every city there should be a minimum of 10 people speaking on this knowledge. That's how it should grow. People wanting an audience with him, writing him letters from around the world. Where they'd write 3 letters. One to the place where he was before, one to the place he might be right now in itinerary, one to the place he goes next. There's no email back then, so just so he gets the letter. 3 in the morning at his desk, not leaving a single letter unwritten, not replied to. For whose sake? Does he get any praise for this? Nothing at all. Paricha prarabdha. Only for the loka sangraha, the wise men do this. So then there was a question asked, quiz time here. We saw this 2 days ago. When the Sanat Kumaras see Bhagavan in the form of that Hamsa, they ask him one question, to which he replied, the very question you have is a wrong question, is what he says. What was that question? Who are you? Was the question. The answer that who are you, he finally gives now. Dehopi daiva vashaga khalu karma yavat svarambhakam pratisamikshata eva sasuhu tam saprapanchamadhirudha samadhi yogaha swapnam punarna bhajate pratibuddhavastutaha. He says that this body has these pranas. This body must go through this prarabdha, the karmas that are the results of what we've done before, and the karma phalas result in new karmas happening as well. So the one who's established in this knowledge, finally awakened to what this reality is, they never get attached to this world again. This world, which is nothing but a dream. Now your first question is, what does this have to do with who are you? How does this reveal anything about who are you? Where he just pointed out everything, who I am not. Who you are not either. Because when it comes to this truth, that's pointed at. There is no way we point to it and say, this is the description of what the reality is. It's always given in negatory terms, isn't it? If you're at a school recital where your kids are performing, Bal Vihar also, we have that. All the kids are dressed the same, similar uniform they have to wear. Tusks and, noses and tails and everything like our Bal Vihar plays. They're all wearing something like that. The person next to you asks, which one is your kid? What do you say? The kid with the tail right there, that's my kid. Those aren't descriptors. The Indian-looking kid over there, nerdy-looking one, that's my kid. That's all of them too. Nothing you can point at to say this is the person. Some distinguisher has to be there, something special. Okay, they'll see the one that's short than the rest of them, the one that barely comes to the shoulders of the other kids. That is my strong child right there. You point out that way. With this self, I can't even do that as a descriptor there. There is nothing perceptible I can say to indicate what it is. The famous story, Puja Gurudev is learning at the feet of Tapomji Maharaj. After a while of going through the Shastra, he asks what seems like a very incisive question. He says, Guru, why are we learning about this knowledge through conditionings? This body framework we use of the 5 sheaths. These different avasthatraya, that's also a conditioning. Karya, karana, that's also conditioning, cause and effect. Why all these conditionings? Why not teach that truth directly, is what he asked. Tapomji Maharaj says, go bring me water. The wording is very important here. Go bring me water is what he says. Gurudev goes down, naturally, gets a pail, fills it up with water and comes. Tapomji Maharaj slaps away the pail. He says, why did you bring me this container here? I said bring me water. Gurudev is stunned. How else do I bring the water up here if not for a container? That's what he says. That just as you ask, how can this knowledge be taught without conditionings? This knowledge cannot be given without any kind of qualifier. We saw on the very first day, when I even call myself a witness of these 3 states, even calling myself a witness is a compromise statement. Because I'm taking this illusion of the world as reality to even call myself a witness. Like that, all of these frameworks are compromised in some way, but as we saw yesterday, that process is called adhyaropa apavada, that Veda does on purpose. Adhyaropa, putting that superimposition there to draw my attention to it. Apavada, removing that superimposition to say that the thing was covering, that is the truth right there. Ingenious method given to me by the Guru Parampara. So what Bhagavan is describing here is, in all of these ways, reiterating, you find out what you are by first getting rid of what you're not. And that's where we start. Because what you are is hard to fathom. What I'm not is quite easy to fathom. To go through everything I think I am, taking away those layers, simplest method to follow. That's what's prescribed. Now, finally, Bhagavan reveals his true identity. That first part of the answer he gave to who are you was a more subtle way of answering it. Here he reveals what his true identity is. Mayaita duktam vo vipra guhyam. Oh, there's a different tune this time. Mayaita duktam vo vipra guhyam yat sankhya yogaha jani tamagatam yagnyam yushmad dharma vivakshyaya. He's addressing the Sanakadis now, saying, O Brahmanas, this great knowledge of that Sankhya and the Yoga, that also comes in Bhagavad Gita, of this Sankhya and the Yoga is a great secret, and it's because of my desire to give you that knowledge of this Dharma. Know me as nothing else but that Bhagavan Vishnu himself. Bhagavan is clearly saying that here. Krishnavatara, and that's what he's saying, I came in the form of that swan. So when it comes to this knowledge of Sankhya and Yoga, what that boils down to is, Sankhya is this pure knowledge of that self. What is the nature of that Sat Chit Ananda, knowing myself as that? Yoga is also that secret of what is the means to understand it. Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. What is that marga, not margas, marga? What is that path that I take to understand what this knowledge is? Because if we look in the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, I said this before, Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharyaji's Bhashya, he says the purpose of this text or any text is to differentiate what is pravritti, what is nivritti. Pravritti, that path which is marred by the blemish of action, yet takes me to a certain point for a purpose, or nivritti, that path of withdrawal, which is like that highway to that moksha liberation. It is one path, different steps that we take on there. So whatever knowledge is given here in this Hamsa Gita is parallel to that knowledge given in Bhagavad Gita, in the Upanishads, what is taught by various acharyas in the Puranas and Itihasas as well. It's not that it's some different kind of knowledge presented in a different way, different focuses are taken up, essentially that one same knowledge. Aham yogasya sankhyasya satyasya tejasaha parayanam dvijashreshtaha shriya kirter damasya cha. Bhagavan here says, I am the abode of that yoga and sankhya. Any of this knowledge that is there, I am the one where it has to come to eventually. Don't think that it leads anywhere else. And this truth that is followed by those who are diligent, known by those that are wise, they are the ones who take advantage of it. And everyone wants this knowledge. Those who shine, those who are wealthy, those who possess something, those who are self-controlled. All those good virtues that people have, they culminate in this knowledge. Why is that significant? Because one common sentiment out there is, we will do our sadhana in the form of pujas and japa. We will inculcate good values and do good deeds. We'll give in dhanam, all of this. Just don't ask us to sit through satsangs or to go through this kind of logical stuff. That's beyond me. This whole study of Shastra and everything, I'm not going to do that. It's too boring for me. I'm not fit for that. We got to make ourselves fit for it. Any other value, any other sadhana, everything is preparation for this right here. Or else we could easily say, this whole Jnana Marga is only for those who choose, who want to be intellectual and who thrive in this. It's for them. The rest of the people don't really have to know this. When we're saying adhikari for realization is anyone that wants to be happy, to get to that point of realization, all of this knowledge must come to them. That's what all this worship prepares me for. So when Bhagavan says, worship me ardently and you come to me, it's not that he's just saying only that worship is necessary. That understanding in what this logic is also has to be understood very, very clearly. Or else there is no growth. I don't have the luxury of cherry-picking what I want on the path and doing it. This is not some European vacation where I have a scorecard of these are the cities I want to visit, I check those and I go there. That's not how this works. The whole process to be undertaken. One of the most enlightening conversations I ever had was with an atheist. There's a class in college I took called creative writing. It was an elective class, so I took that. It would meet once a week, Monday nights, 7 to 9:45. 7 to 9:45. So the professor would give a break in the middle. From like 8 to 8:10, you could go outside for a bit. I'd have a granola bar, some people had beauty break, whatever they wanted to do during that time. There's one kid in the class, we were striking up a conversation. I said, so what's your major here? And when are you graduating? He said, whether I graduate or not doesn't matter for my life. I said, why not? Do you have rich parents or something? What's the reason why? He said, I'm a creative writing major. So with that degree or without the degree, the prospects for my life are the same. I said, well, that's quite astute of you to admit that right away then. And I said, you must have rich parents then if you can talk that way. He said, yeah, I do actually. They're paying for all of this. Good for you, dude. Then we talked about religion. And he said, I am an atheist, and I have a bone to pick with all you religious people. Not me as a Hindu specifically, just you religious people in general. I have a problem with you guys. I said, okay, what is it? You all claim a monopoly on values, where you need your books to tell you that it's wrong to kill people or wrong to steal. Without those books, I know already it's wrong to do those things. You may need those to curtail your behavior and control you. I am of a much broader-minded species. I don't have to do all that. He had a point. Had me thinking. Values are a big part of our religion. Pujya Gurudev boils down any value found in Sanatana Dharma to three main ones. Satyam, Ahimsa, Brahmacharya. truth, non-violence and non-harm, and self-control. Not just sexual continence, but control of all the sense organs. No usage that is inefficient or unnecessary. Now, and Gurudev has boiled it down to 3 values also. What is the value of those values then? It is cultivating those values. It takes me from the depths of tamas and rajas to that sattva. That's the first starting point we had at the beginning of Hamsa Gita. Sattva pradhana is what I have to have. That comes through those values. And to counter that kid's argument, whatever value system we find anywhere originates from the Shastra. Because if we were left to our own tendencies, say dharma was taken out, that's not something we have to abide by. Greed, lust, anger, procurement, that's what would take over as human nature. Naturally, that's where our minds would go. We need a value system given by religion with the goal in mind to even curtail and dictate what our behavior is. As human beings, we need that to be there. Because those vasanas are so strong, they need to be broken down. A value system given by Shastra is the only way to make that happen. So we miss the point when we say that, values are there everywhere in the world, why religion? In Sanatana Dharma, the reason why the values are given is to grow into that sattva, and there's a clear roadmap that's provided to me. In revealing His glory, Bhagavan makes that very clear to us. What else comes up? Mam bhajanti gunaha sarve nirgunam nirapeksham suhridam priyamatmanam samya sangadayo gunaha. That there are certain qualities to have, like equipoise, even-mindedness, detachment, things like this. They are distinct from all other qualities. So once you get those qualities, worshiping me, which is nothing but the substratum, that which has no qualities, not dependent on all, wishes well for all, beloved of all. That's what you come to then. Because what misconception can we have? That thing that I have to go to has no qualities at all. That's what my true nature is supposed to be. Why cultivate these good qualities in the first place then? If the goal is to get there, why even have any of these good qualities? That's a path I have to take. Without cultivating them, without getting to that sattva, there is no hope of being guna atita, going beyond those gunas even. Because tamas and sattva look deceptively similar, don't they? You say, what is a sattvic person like in your mind? They're sitting there calmly, quietly, not bothering anyone, eyes closed, just chilling out at one, at peace with themselves. What does a tamasic person look like? Calmly, quietly, sitting there with their eyes closed, not bothering anyone, not saying anything, reveling in their own selves. They don't look that different, don't they? Someone that's tamasic or someone sattvic. One is brought out of lethargy and inertia and not wanting to improve or do anything. One is brought from that maturity of seeing the ways of the world, and that shanta chitta is what pervades their intellect. Outward viewing and what it looks like is no indication what has brought them to that stage. For that reason, these values must be inculcated then. These virtues have to be brought into my personality so that I know that I'm sattvic, making that final leap to understanding the truth. It's not possible from tamas. There's the rub. That's where it lies. Now the 2 shlokas that are left. Finally, then they pay their respects to Bhagavan, seeing him in that form that he really is. Iti me chinna sandeha munayas sanakadayaha sabhajayitva paraya bhaktya granata samstavaihi. Now that they are doubtless in what this knowledge is, chinna sandeha, there is no more doubt left. They all worship Bhagavan and praised him thoroughly at this point. After that praise comes, we are left with one more shloka describing Bhagavan's feelings about being this worshipped and praised. Tairaham pujita samyak samstutaf paramarshibhihi pratyeyaya svakam dhama pashyataf parameshtinaha. That worshipped and praised by these great sages, as Brahmaji, who refused to answer the question, as he was watching, I returned from where I came. Meaning the purpose of that avatara is to uphold dharma, or for some specific purpose. Once that purpose is fulfilled, he goes back to where he came. And that's indicative of this Narajanma as well. Purpose of this entire birth is to only seek this knowledge and this knowledge alone. Anything else that I do, any other purushartha that I pursue, is within that ambit of dharma to aid me in this journey at a very basic level from what we've seen the past few days, to make my mind divinized, to make it sattvic. That's the very first hurdle I have to get through. After that comes any kind of logical thinking I have to do, any kind of knowledge that I put myself through to really understand what the crux of this is. The very first step is, in every area of my life, can I make it sattvic, closest to what Shastra says dharma is? That's the surrender that it takes. Now, what we have is Shastra Kripa is there. Having access to that Shastra, we all have. Guru Kripa is there also. The fact that at this point in our lives we're not searching for a Guru is a great blessing. We found who that Guru is. What's left? Atma Kripa. My own self-effort. Just as in the Vyavaharik world we saw, I go after so many things with that tenacity in different ways to get a leg up on someone or to be the best I can be. Do I have that same tenacity when it comes to knowing this knowledge? And is it sustainable? Do I keep persistently going after it, even with obstacles? And that's a question each of us can only answer for ourselves. So with that, I have thoroughly enjoyed going through Hamsa Gita. This is one of my favorite texts. Before the year was out, I definitely wanted to take it. And when we return, January, February, around then, we'll have another series of Jnana Yagna then. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.